So you finally want to learn about the true master of the galaxy, do you? Not the predictable, simplistic Jedi or their tiresome balance nonsense, but someone who actually understood power, manipulation, and how to truly control the Force. How? Adorable. I'd love to say this is an easy lesson, but I suspect that understanding the complexities of Darth Sidious might be a bit beyond your limited capacity. Nevertheless, I'll humor you. Today we delve into the life and legacy of Darth Sidious, also known as Sheev Palpatine, the true architect of the Empire's rise and the galaxy's downfall. Strap in, class, because you're in for a history lesson that might just break your rose-colored perceptions. Let's begin with the basics. I'm sure you've all heard this before. Sidious, born Sheev Palpatine in 84 BBY on the peaceful planet of Naboo, came from a family of insignificant nobility. No, his early life wasn't a tale of hardship, nor did he suffer some great injustice. In fact, his early years were rather unremarkable. He was a senator in the Naboo government, and you might think this means he was some kind of benevolent, modest servant of the people. How quaint. In truth, Palpatine was simply biding his time, crafting a reputation that would eventually mask his true nature. Because you see, Palpatine wasn't a man with normal ambitions. He wasn't interested in helping people, building institutions, or dare I say, following the Jedi's childish ideals of peace. No, he had far grander designs for the galaxy. The galaxy was simply a game to him, one he would control from the shadows through sheer guile. Now, before we get to his rise to power, let's discuss the Sith, shall we? Oh yes, I can already see you rolling your eyes at the mere mention of them, probably thinking you already understand what they're about. But you see, the Sith were not merely evil individuals like your Jedi historians would like to portray them. The Sith, especially in Sidious's time, were a carefully cultivated philosophy of control, power, and ambition. They didn't blindly throw their lives away on ideals or dogma. They bent the Force to their will. The rule of two was a masterstroke by Darth Bane, a Sith Lord who had the foresight to understand the Sith could only thrive if they were focus-driven and not distracted by infighting. There would always be a master, and there would always be an apprentice. The apprentice would challenge the master, eventually overthrowing them if they were worthy. A cycle of growth and evolution. It's almost tragic that so many Jedi simply didn't grasp the elegance of the system, but I digress. Now, Sidious wasn't always the full-fledged Sith Lord we know today. He studied under Darth Plagueis the Wise, who was no slouch himself. Plagueis, a moon, was obsessed with one thing: immortality. Oh, what a noble goal, don't you think? The desire to conquer death, to extend one's life indefinitely. How quaint. But Sidious, he had different plans. Yes, he learned much from his master, including how to manipulate the Force in ways most Jedi would consider perverse. But Sidious wasn't interested in Plagueis' obsession with controlling life and death. Sidious wasn't a sentimental fool like Plagueis. He wanted power. Pure, unadulterated power. And the only way to truly achieve it was through deception, manipulation, and, most importantly, eliminating the weak, those who clung to the Jedi's silly notion of balance. So Sidious did what any self-respecting Sith would do. He killed Plagueis in his sleep. Isn't it simply delicious? The master was no match for the ambition of his apprentice. Sidious, after all, had been planning that moment since day one. Plagueis was just a stepping stone. Now that we're through the basics, let's talk about Sidious's real genius, his rise to power. Here's the part where most people simply miss the point. It wasn't about brute force, it was about subtlety, patience, and manipulation. Sidious knew that in order to control the galaxy, he couldn't just start swinging lightsabers and throwing Sith lightning everywhere. That would be unrefined, un-Sith-like. No, instead, Sidious manipulated the galactic politics to create the perfect storm. First, he orchestrated the Naboo crisis, using the Trade Federation as his pawn. He engineered a crisis that seemed like a political issue, but in reality, it was a carefully staged event to discredit the current Supreme Chancellor and further destabilize the Republic. Through the guise of a humble senator from Naboo, Palpatine portrayed himself as a calm, reasonable leader, a true statesman in a time of crisis. He manipulated everyone around him with charm and deceit, and in the chaos that followed, he took control of the Republic, positioning himself as Supreme Chancellor. All of this was carefully orchestrated to set the stage for his ultimate goal, the destruction of the Jedi Order and the rise of the Galactic Empire. A little bit of patience goes a long way, doesn't it? Of course, we can't forget about his role in the Clone Wars. Ah, the Clone Wars. The perfect war. Two sides, both manipulated by Sidious, each believing they were doing something noble. On one side, you had the Republic, led by the Jedi, pathetic warriors with a misguided sense of righteousness. And on the other side, the Separatists, led by his puppet, Count Dooku, a former Jedi who had also been seduced to the dark side. Sidious controlled both sides. Both the Jedi Council and the Separatist leaders danced to his tune, all while the Clone Army, another one of Sidious's brilliant creations, fought his war for him. By the time the dust settled, Sidious was in full control of the Republic, and the Jedi, blinded by their own arrogance, had no idea what was coming. Sidious had engineered a conflict that not only solidified his power, but also provided the perfect excuse to eliminate the Jedi. How wonderfully calculated. And eliminate the Jedi he did, through the infamous Order 66. The clones who had been bred to obey without question turned on their Jedi commanders. The Jedi, in their blind idealism, never saw it coming. They believed they were the guardians of peace. How delusional. Sidious, on the other hand, understood that true peace comes not from balance, but from absolute control. The Jedi were too weak to see that. Their destruction was a necessary step for Sidious to achieve his ultimate goal. Now let's talk about the Galactic Empire, the fruit of Sidious's long-term labor. After the fall of the Jedi, Sidious proclaimed the Empire a dictatorship in all but name. The Senate, once a mighty body, was reduced to a mere puppet of his will. The galaxy was plunged into a state of tyranny under his rule, and yet, here's where people get it all wrong. Sidious wasn't just interested in political control, no. He wanted to dominate the Force itself. He wasn't just the Emperor, he was the master of the dark side. His knowledge of Sith alchemy, his ability to manipulate life and death, was unparalleled. Sidious had mastered powers so dark that even his own apprentice, Darth Vader, was afraid of him. But all good things must come to an end. Sidious's arrogance was his downfall. His overreach, his attempt to turn Luke Skywalker, the last hope of the Jedi, to the dark side, was a fatal mistake. In the process, his own apprentice, Vader, finally saw the truth, that Sidious was nothing more than a tyrant who had used him. In a final act of betrayal, Vader cast Sidious down the reactor shaft, ending his life, though not before Sidious could plan his return through secret Sith rituals and the dark side manipulation. So, to wrap up, class, Sidious wasn't just a man. He was the embodiment of Sith philosophy, manipulation, power, control, and the will to dominate. He mastered the galaxy not through brute force, but through his insidious mind and a willingness to wait, to plan, and to act when the time was right. Sidious's legacy is one of eternal darkness, a testament to the Sith's ability to bend the galaxy to their will. Perhaps you too could learn something from him, or perhaps you'll just continue to indulge your Jedi fantasies. Either way, the dark side will always have the last laugh. Now get out.